Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Season 7, Episode 27 of Music is Not a Genre, creeping my hands up to do the hand gestures. MxG. I did it extra slow that time so you could take screenshots of each hand, learn them yourself, and then we're all going to get into a big room together when I do my live in-person episode, whenever that may be, and we'll shout out MxG and do the hand gestures together, okay? All I need is $50,000. So get started. This week's topic is the freewheeling catch-up machine number 10. The envelope is broken, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, thank you as always for watching and listening. Listeners, go to youtube.com/@musicisnotagenre, and you get a video for every episode of this podcast. Watchers, go to nickdimatteo.com/musicisnotagenre, and you don't have to wonder why my background is the way it is, and you can just listen. And everyone, go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. for support of my band Wreck, this podcast, and everything I do. A little tongue-tied today. I'm doing a lot of episodes this week because I've got a busy end of May and June coming up with gigs. So I'm banking these episodes and doing them all in 2 days. Oh, my goodness. And, of course, like, share, subscribe, rate, review, whatever else it is they tell you to do. It all actually works and it all helps. I do have a songwriting coaching service. As I have been mentioning, go to nickdimatteo.com/songcoaching and you can find out more about it if you want to write a song and how to help you get it to being not just good, but great. And finally, new music coming from Wreck. 2 new singles have come out already, Eat Salvation LR Remix. And I don't know when this is airing, but it may be right at or before or after another new single comes out, all caps. Very excited about that. And that is also from Wreck's upcoming album, Kite to Camden, which has been on Bandcamp but will now be released worldwide on June 20th. Go to nickdimatteo.com/music or /discography. You can find all of that music, whatever's been released, and it'll give you links to wherever you want to listen to it. I prefer Bandcamp, but I know the story. Just go stream it. Enjoy it. And again, I will mention I may be doing a live catch-up episode. This is the catch-up episode, but I might do a live one towards the end of this season, sometime in the summer, and I'll let you know when that is. If you want to participate, go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. That's all I have to say, and I think that was quite enough, sir. Quite enough. Let's get to the topic, the freewheeling catch-up machine number 10. The envelope is broken. Why? Why? Well, of course, this is the 10th catch-up episode. You know, it almost seems like I've done more for some reason, because I think I've been doing this for the catch-ups for 3 seasons. Has it been? Is it 3 or 4? I don't know. And I love them because it gives me a slight break, but more importantly, it highlights you, the fans, or non-fans, or whoever's commenting, and anyone else I run across who comments on anything that's on youtube.com/@musicisnotagenre, or anything I post, or anything having to do with this show or the music that I create. And then I can add in other comments and things that maybe I missed and all of that stuff to help further the conversation, the discussion, and also, again, to kind of give you a thanks for listening and watching, and to shout out all of you who have commented during the period that this applies to, which is between the previous episode, catch-up episode, and this one. And that's where we are. Why did I call it The Envelope is Broken? Okay. Well, after I go through all those comments, I'm going to conclude by explaining why I feel like this season has pushed the envelope so far that it's now pretty much broken wide open. I will explain that at the end of the episode in my conclusion area. As usual, I will go through each topic more or less in chronological order, include all the comments from you, as well as additional thoughts, anything I may have missed. Then the concluding section I talked about. There will be a featured song, a new one, but kind of not a new one, and you'll see what I mean when I get there. And questions, as always, which is really just one question this time around. So we're done. The intro. Let's get into the subjects. Ape Cafe. If you don't know Ape Cafe, that's the band that I was in the 90s with the legendary Pete Bradis. That was kind of a quirky mix of punk and funk and hip hop and prog and pop and rock and all of these things mixed together. Brainchild of Pete. He did all the lyrics, most of the music. Many of us contributed some of the music, and I contributed the singing and the melodies. Almost all of the melodies. We were together for a few years, recorded 2.5 albums, and then broke up and have never gotten back together. It's been quite a long time. Now Pete, among other things, he's a writer. He's been on this show. I have highlighted his book and all of that. And he's also a teacher. And his students have heard about, they looked him up, I guess, and they heard about Ape Cafe. And because I have been posting Ape Cafe stuff on Rex's YouTube channel, they discovered it and they listened to it and they loved it. So now there's this kind of cult following because some of Pete's students are now older, you know, and they are loving it too. Maybe in their teens. They're not that much older, maybe early 20s. I'm not sure. And they're into it, which is cool because I would love to get back together with Pete and, you know, find a drummer and a bass player, or, you know, I could play the bass or probably end up playing the keys, and do a reunion tour of his backyard, let's say, or something in South Jersey. But that is all to say that someone commented on it. Somebody named Michael Palante said about the song Talking to the Smurfs, which was one of the highlights of our shows, Talking to the Smurfs. You got to listen to it to understand. Not joking. Michael Palante said, not joking, this was my favorite song for like 6 months as a kid. So he discovered it again, probably as one of Pete's students, and loved the song for 6 months, which is insane because I had just posting things is you should always post things. Let me tell you that right now. Side note here, don't wait to post stuff. Don't wait to put stuff out. I've said this before. Whether you're a creator or you have somebody else's creations that you have permission to post, do it because it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to worry about what you think of it. Somebody out there is going to love it, and this is proof of that. Speaking of online music, my dad did a concert during the pandemic, and I posted some clips from that. So an old friend of ours that I bumped into online, who I don't think I've seen in decades and I've not really actually talked to, we chatted for a while, a guy named Jeff Glasgow. And he said about my dad's pandemic concert, watching this is a joy. I love this. Tungsu, I wish I was there. Tungsu is what you say. We were all in karate, Tungsu, Korean karate, and that's sort of the sign off. You say Tungsu, and you give a fist, and that kind of a thing. It's meant to be hearty and all of that, and that's what he was saying. He said, "I wish I was there. Reincarnation was one of my favorites." So that's a song from my dad's solo album from 1976, I believe. Those recording sessions were awesome. I think it's why I fell in love with the studio. But he said it was one of his favorite songs. Jeff went on to say Piano Man, which I guess my dad played during that. Or maybe he was calling my dad that. I love you, Big Nick. Big Nick looks great, which he's at the time was in his late 70s. So that's good to hear. That puts a tear to my eyes. I remember when you wrote that song, we were kids. So that's about Radiation Blues. And I wrote a song when I was a kid called Radiation Blues. And my dad and I performed it during his concert, which was fun because I think it's the first time I had done it in a really, really, really long time. That is online, I think, on SoundCloud. And I don't plan on releasing it further that I know of anyway. We'll see if I change my mind. We were in the Grease band, and that's true. One of the first quote-unquote bands I put together was when I was a preteen, and Jeff Glasgow and I don't know who else, maybe my brother, we made a band where we just sang Grease music. I don't even think we played instruments. So I guess I've been putting bands together for a long time. On a different tone, but still about music, as part of the pandemic, I performed the Billy Preston song, Will It Go Round in Circles, one of my favorite songs at the time. As a kid, I performed it on the piano and sang it as part of Gay Pride Month. And somebody on YouTube named K120 said, "Leave it alone." So K120, thumbs up to you for taking the time out to watch or not watch, but at least click on the video of me performing that song, which I don't know if it was good or bad. I don't remember. It must have been good enough for me to post. And I love the song enough to want to share it. I don't know what you mean by leave it alone. I asked you what you meant and you didn't answer. But if this is something you'd like to expound on, please tell me more. Why should I leave it alone? And by it, do you mean the song? Or the piano itself? Or I don't know. But fun. Not a full thought, but fun. Also music. You've got another thing coming. I did a piano version of that on the same Gay Pride performance during the pandemic. And GJ Man 1972 said, hey, man, I think you did a great fucking job on this song. I've been a guitar player for 30 years and then took up the piano because of the similarity with the chords and how well it translates over, and came upon your video when I learned how to play this song. Anyway, great job and thanks for making the video. Thank you, GJ, man, for watching it, for commenting on it, for liking it. Again, it's something... I love translating songs that are on guitar to piano and vice versa, or to acoustic or whatever, because my belief is always, if a song is good, it can be played on anything. And apparently this one worked, so thank you. A very old episode, I think season 1 maybe. Violent Femmes and Gender Duality, bands with perfect names. It might have been season 3, I don't know. Guy named Ian Cleaver said, I have all the Violent Femmes albums and Gordon Gano's Under the Sun album in my collection and added up, which is the greatest hits kind of thing. And I want to say, awesome, Ian Cleaver. I appreciate you checking that episode out. And also, I've even said to you online, I also have those same albums. And I'm always waiting for them to put out something else new. If you don't know, guys, Violent Femmes associated with the 80s and the early 90s, but they put out records at least through the 2000s and are still touring. Another old episode, the CDR and music pirating. It's about the age of pirating music in the late 90s and 2000s. J.G. Belmont put a little funny laugh emoji on there. I guess he liked the title, which I appreciate that, because it was CDR, and that's why music pirating, and I made a joke. I take pride in my titles. Some of them suck, but the majority of them are pretty damn good, so I appreciate the laughter. Hip-hop production, the episode that I did on the history of hip-hop production. Roy Deon said, great video, and I appreciate that. That one of the things that I have to say is part of the main topic of this episode, which again, other than you and the fans, is about pushing the envelope. And that is, I have been involved in hip hop since I was a preteen, but it's only been recently that I've felt like I needed to integrate it into the rest of my work. And as part of that, I didn't know enough about hip hop production as a historical thing and the phases and all to really dive in the way I wanted to. So I did the research and I did this episode and went through all the phases of hip hop production from the very early days in the 70s all the way up until today. So I appreciate you, Roy, for enjoying it. My episode on Beck, Cino556 said their favorites are definitely Mellow Gold and Odelay. Some tracks on Mellow Gold are a bit too acid trippy some days, but it's all gravy. I love that because that phrase is the embodiment of Mellow Gold. It's all gravy. And yeah, it's interesting because when I did the Beck episode, I remember hearing his pre-Mellow Gold music for the first time ever. You want acid trippy, listen to the pre-Mellow Gold stuff. Mellow Gold is the transition between the early acid trippy kind of experimental stuff, talk about pushing the envelope, and his more kind of formed music on Odelay and beyond. Next topic, King's X. Sean Hoke, who's the guy who suggested that I do King's X, and I mentioned him in the Tears for Fears episode because that's whose favorite band that is. He's a super fan. Love you, Sean. Sean Oak about King's X went back to the episode and said, listening to this again, and I missed something you said that I totally agree on. That's incendiary in the King's X fandom, LOL, which I say a lot like that. Side note, I say a lot of things that are incendiary to so-called fans of bands and artists because most people tend to follow the conventional wisdom, which is this is their best album, this is their best period, this is their worst album, all the other albums are not worth listening to, whatever it is, which you're not a real fan if that's what you believe. You're a fan of what you're a fan of, but you're not a fan of that band on the whole. And this guy is a fan of King's X. Sean is. And I love that he agreed with me on something that he knows would piss off the other King's X fans, which is, I think Dogman is a step down in those first 6 albums. Fight me. And I think I said that because I expected more from it because it was sort of their push for mainstream. And they did much better stuff after that. And he goes on to say, Sean, there are great songs on Dogman. Not really any that are bad, but so much of them is missing. Their essence is missing, which maybe the producers and they were, big label and all that, and they wanted to compete with grunge and blah, blah, blah. But, and again, there are good songs on there, but yeah, it wasn't quite their sound and their essence. Also, Sean goes on to say, no Ty singing. He wrote songs on there still, but it's all Doug singing. I've been thinking about you, man. Hope all is well. Things have been tough here, but I came across this band, Dirty Loops, that was so exciting. It kind of helped bring me a little back to life. Work shit out and follow the light with Corey Wong from Wolfpack. I think you'll dig them. Just musician to musician. No challenges for the podcast this time, LOL. Hey, don't test me. I may do a Dirty Loops episode. I probably won't because, Sean, I will say I listened to them and, man, the performances blew me away. I didn't love the songs the way you might, which totally fine. I'm glad you love them that much and they are helping you. But you cannot deny those performances and the production. They're absolutely amazing, live or recorded. Sean's also taking voice lessons, starting with the Tears for Fears song, Hello, and suggested I do an episode on them, which I did already because of that suggestion. He goes on to say, TFF, Tears for Fears, is my all-time favorite band. Been with me since I was a kid carrying a Walkman around with songs from The Big Chair on tape. And I don't know if you saw my Tears for Fears episode about that. You'll see. I was born in 85, the year it came out. That's insane, man. Them and Duran Duran. Love it. I finally got to see Tears for Fears 2 years ago, which, let me tell you, a pavilion like that in the middle of June in North Carolina was a lot on my heart. But it was beyond worth it. I saw Duran Duran for the Pop Trash album. Man, you're lucky. But they only played Electric Barbarella off Medazzaland. Another one where a lot of Duran Duran fans were like, Medazzaland, it sucks, whatever. And he and I both like that. So, man, Sean, you're great. All right. Starting with this season, my opening episode was Hey Assholes. Music is not a generation either. Gay Lil Fish... comment was, my main concern is the longevity of CDs. I don't know how long it takes them to degrade, but the upkeep is definitely more. But I like that. It's why I have vinyl records. Yeah, and it's true. What shocked me, because even back in the 90s especially, but even a little bit beyond that, our belief was it's digital, man. It's going to last forever. And, digital data does or has the potential to last forever, depending on where the world goes, if it's still around. But CDs are a physical thing, and they do degrade. The way they degrade, how long it takes them, depends on the quality of the imprint, the quality of the CD itself. So CDRs, the ones I made, half of them they have one song on them now, and that's it, or nothing. But more professionally made CDs are going to last, I think they said 50 to 100 years, something like that. The ones that are like gold, who knows how long they will last. And I respect that you have vinyl and like vinyl. I have vinyl too. I've always said it's not my favorite, but I understand why people love it. Going to the next episode, The Amalgam Effect, one of my favorite episodes this year. And again, a way that I kind of pushed the envelope. I really diving into this topic that was hard to flesh out, to be honest. someone I missed there, and that is Rihanna. Someone who is an amalgamist, someone who combines and does all kinds of music. That Rihanna is one of the greats to have done that. And of those kinds of artists from the recent last 15 years, let's say, she's my favorite because of that. And just her attitude and ethos and all that. Along with that Amalgam Effect episode, Burning Two Bridges, another super fan. Good topic. I wonder how often artists are limited by label influence or even, unfortunately, by their own fans who reject new, wonderful creativity. And then he went on to say, after pondering all your examples, which I put in the episode, it's interesting how the most successful amalgamists are solo artists, from Bowie to Prince to Madonna to Pink to Harry Styles. So here's the thing. On the first topic, on the first comment that you made, Burning Two Bridges, I think you're right that label pressure forces artists often to pigeonhole themselves. And some will rebel and never do it. Some will rebel and do themselves on the next release. But some get stuck there because the label tells them that's what's going to make them successful, and they're being pressured, and that is unfortunate. But I think it is in a way even more unfortunate when fans abandon a band because they go into different areas. And I've said this, I just said it about Tears for Fears. I just said it about whatever the topic was up there in the last few minutes, that if you're a real fan of a band, you don't have to be, but if you say you're a real fan, go wherever they go. You may not love everything they do, but you respect it. You don't abandon them. So I love that. And yes, it is interesting how the most successful amalgamists are solo artists. And I think that's because it's a fuckload harder to get an entire band to come along with you to change, over and over and over. Even when you talk about Tears for Fears, they were a band, but not really. They were a duo who had musicians. And then a solo who had musicians, and then a duo again. So I feel like the smaller the ensemble, solo, duo, trio maybe, you can go further places because the dynamics allow you to do that. And certainly if you're solo, you go wherever the hell you want, Country music. Yeah, I did an episode on country music this season because I'm crazy. Somebody named Melanated Republican, which I love that. Funny. I, of course, probably don't agree with the politics, but I love what that says about the world and about the person. Who gave this old man a webcam? I couldn't tell if it was meant to be funny and like, why would somebody like you do, right? And that was the one where I was doing a country accent as well. So I don't know. Or if the guy was serious, I could be a woman, was serious, who gave this old man a webcam? Either way, you saw me on the webcam. It's not a webcam, but I get what you're saying. I appreciate your comment. I appreciate you watching however much you did, Melanated Republican. And then Metriod Shine, might have been Metroid Shine. Maybe I typed that wrong. Sorry if I got that wrong. Said, I like Faye Webster and SZA. Now, I don't know enough about SZA to know if she's done country or a ton of country, but I appreciate that you love them. Faye Webster, I understand exactly why you said that. And I get that you're saying that country music isn't what it was. It is going further and wider. And that's only a good thing for any genre, as far as I'm concerned, whether you like where it's going or not. Nico Case. I read this subsequent to country. And I should have put, I read it too late to put it in the episode. Nico Case says the situation for female country artists is worse than ever and gatekeeping is rampant. So I'm saying this for two reasons. One, because this is Nico Case saying it, so she knows what she's talking about, right? Maybe three reasons. Two, female country artists, whoever, anybody who doesn't fit the mold that the powers that be think are going to have trouble. But three, you would think by now that wouldn't be happening as much. Still happening, you would think, but not as much. The fact that it's worse than ever might mean the country is running scared and they need to stick with the good old boys or whatever it is, or it might mean the wrong people are running the show. I don't know. It's usual that the wrong people are running the show in the music world. It's why people like us are poor. All right. But I had to put that in. All right, so we're getting up to the halfway point, but I want to do a few more things. The Police episode, had fun with. Frankenstein Archive said, when it came out, it felt very rushed. This is about, what the hell, Zenyatta Mondatta. A couple of really good tracks framed around a lot of mediocre B-side material. Canary in a Coal Mine, Man in a Suitcase Behind My Camel, all B-grade throwaways. Frankenstein Archive, I could not disagree more. As I told you, Zenyatta Mondatta is my favorite album. I know that you are not a true Police fan. You're a fan of the stuff you like from them. But if you can trash an album like that and those songs, especially frickin' Canary in a Coal Mine and Man in a Suitcase, Behind My Camel, I get what you're saying, but I still don't think it's a throwaway, then you're not a real Police fan. Sorry, but thank you for commenting. My episode on the Kite to Candon songs. Again, album comes out worldwide June 20th. Shell's Jean, I don't know how this says Rhythm 77 sounds like Wii Music, LOL, and that is 100% true. It was inspired in part by Wii Music. So listen to Rhythm 77, recarea.bandcamp.com, or wait, June 20th. It's going to be out everywhere. Apple Jelly Poochie was a new subscriber to Rec Band NYC, which is youtube.com/@RecBandNYC. Thank you for subscribing. I got a few new subscribers. I appreciate that. Please go to youtube.com/@RecMusic. youtube.com/@RecBandNYC and subscribe there. I could use the help. Adam Pills Greg said, read 3 kinds of concept albums, which was one of the clips. I am the only one that has seen this videogram, and so for my judgment of this videogram, I deem it acclamatory. I praise this videogram. So a troll, but really damn good troll, you know. And then my friend Crystal, I mentioned this in Tears for Fears, Eat Salvation reminds me big time of Tears for Fears. Very cool. Couple more comments here before we pop off to the halfway point. My interview with Ralph Tastian. Bakeda Smith, who's the person who booked Ralph on my show, gave me 3 hearts and said, great interview. Thank you. That was a pleasure. My history of protest music. Tiffany S. on YouTube said, don't leave out Annie DeFranco's independent record label, Righteous Babe. She was a pioneer and continues to champion important issues. I completely agree. And sorry I didn't mention Righteous Babe. It was a lot to put in that episode, but you're absolutely right. You know, she is a pioneer and she's a baller. She's amazing. Also, I see protest music as necessary historical record. The arts enable expression of lived experience, and sometimes that experience is unfair and even traumatizing. Maybe a song will lead to change. Maybe it opens someone's eyes to a new perspective, or maybe it helps someone feel seen and heard. I think it's great that we have songs from 50 and 100 years ago, literal voices telling us what's going on in the world. So yes, artists should still make these songs. I agree with all of that. There's honestly nothing I can add to that. I completely agree. My interview with Case Mosry, Case himself, Q, said, thank you for having me, Nick. It was great to have you, Case. I've been working with your company on releasing my music, and it's been fairly good so far. I have some questions for you and a couple of concerns, but it's been a pleasure kind of helping you out as well. My bonus episode, The Truth About Vinyl, which is on patreon.com/@musicisnotagenre, but I released it to the world. Zinc and Steel said, you're muddling psychoacoustics and Nyquist's theorem. Also, real signals cannot contain vertical lines or instantaneous changes in angle. No sharp angles and no jumps or gaps. Everything real is analog. Also, I think digitally encoded DBX vinyl will probably be the absolute best possible format that could have ever existed. So, I disagree with all of that. I love your jargon. I love that you know those things about the science of sound. But my point was, it doesn't matter what the fucking waveform looks like. To our ears, the absolute best quality you can get is high quality digital. And as Hot Rob J said, I thought sampling twice gave 40 kilohertz, which is why CDs have a sample weight of 44.1 kilohertz, 40 kilohertz, a bit of wiggle room. You're right about that. The reason I bring that up here is because beyond that, we can't hear difference. And no matter what, okay, DBX vinyl, sure. Digitally encoded, sure. Better than regular vinyl. Still can't hold as much sonic information as even a CD, but certainly not as digital files. Supreme Diggity said, nope, not stair steps. If you start off an explanation with I don't know enough about science, you probably shouldn't be explaining it in the first place. Okay. First of all, have a sense of humor. Get that being self-deprecating doesn't mean you are dismissing what I am saying. And in the context of what I was saying, I went on to say I researched it and got the information right. Beyond that, it's a podcast. You want to know more about the specific science and why I'm right about what I said? Look at the fuck up. Do that, all right? I'm allowed to get pissed at people who are idiots. I appreciate you watching, though. Gregory Lell said 44.1 kilohertz and 48 kilohertz are talking about sample rate. Times per second the encoder is making a measurement of the waveform to reconstruct dizzily. It isn't referring to the pitch frequency it is able to record up to. Sample rate is tied to fidelity on pitch. Right. I know that. But the point being that there are certain pitches that you cannot hear. Let's say pitches within the range that the human can hear. Those pitches will not be picked up on rates that are lower or on vinyl, is what I'm saying. There's certain depth of bass cannot be encoded on vinyl because it's too much information. That was my point. But let me point out to all of these people, I apologize if I'm getting heated. These were snippets, like 1-minute snippets of the fuller episode that they were commenting on, so they didn't see the whole context. Karen Griner, 5405, said, would it be useful to record at higher rates when pitch shifting and time stretching? Yes and no. It's going to come out the same on the recording as long as it's at a decent bass rate. Then Nick Mailman 9265 said less than 1% of the population can tell the difference. Thank you. That's my point. Most people can't tell the difference. And I don't find that sad. I find that just humanity, and that's okay, you know? And I also think that this is the middle of the episode. Thank you all for your comments, even the ones I disagree with. We'll be back in a minute after the mid-roll. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Music is Not a Genre. If you'd like to learn more about this podcast, if you'd like to learn more about the music I do with my band Rec or any other projects or anything else about me, go to nickdematteo.com. That's Nick, DEMATTEO.com. And everything is there. There's even a link to a merch store where you can get t-shirts and mugs and hats and totes and notebooks and so many other things. I'm always adding new products there. Great way to support the podcast. And finally, go to patreon.com/music is not a genre if you'd really like to show your support. My fans and lovely family there get exclusives and other perks and early releases, and they get to suggest topics for future podcasts as well. Thanks for listening to the mid-roll. Now back to the show. All right, we are back. This is Meat Vegan making an appearance here. And the reason I'm talking like meat again is if you haven't seen that episode, I took on a character that I've been playing off and on for years called Meat, and he did his history of music, which I plan to do again. So I got some good, comments and feedback from it. Also, it's just fun. So it was a character who was meant to get a lot of things wrong in the context of, correctness, I guess you could say, about music. And it was so fun. Please look it up. It's on this channel, Meat on Music, A Complete History. Comments. GT Stern said, weird way to put it, but okay. And that was referencing a clip from that about me saying that Nirvana, or Meat saying that Nirvana only wrote songs about personal objects, like the deodorant Teen Spirit and the heart-shaped box. It was a joke. I don't know if he took it seriously or not, but it was cool that he commented. Wesley Seeley said, jokester, laugh, laugh. Which is why is me qualified to talk about music. Whoever you are, Wesley, I love your sense of humor. Of course I do. Cal Liss about me talking about Spotify and all, and how it's called Spotify because of the 5 families, because they're the mob, or whatever it was I said. I forget. The Cal Liss said, are you sure? This sounds very far-fetched. Correct. It's very far-fetched. But I appreciate you taking it seriously. That means I sold the character as a real person. Nicholas Vallis 9802 said, put Mike and Cam away. We don't need any more podcasters. Nicholas, I would love for you to podcast. We need more podcasters like you, speaking truth to power, because I am a powerful podcaster. And I think we don't need more music, right? Or art or blah, blah, or whatever. You watched it and you commented. So more fool you, right? Darrell Ferguson, what a bunch of crap. And that was relating to the clip about Elvis. It's an absolute bunch of crap. Absolute. Completely meant to be a bunch of crap about how Elvis died exactly the way the guy died at the table in Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, among other things. I also called his manager Colonel Tom Sanders. Right? Got it. So, Steely Dan is the next topic. Yeah, I did an episode on Steely Dan. Not my favorite band. A woman on the Facebook forum said, not sure what the UGG part is, because my title was From UGG to Hug. Because there are no UGGs for her, but she'll give the episode a try. So, thank you for giving it a try. I hope you understood that the UGG was me getting over my aversion to the band by listening to the band. That's why I said From UGG to Hug, right? Steve Erickson, frequent guest on this show, said, I've read that Steely Dan are still popular with young people. Back when I was in college, I didn't know anyone who liked them, so there were no fans around me to detract from their music. And he's a fan of Steely Dan, and I had said that there were so many fans of Steely Dan when I was in college, and they were the kind of people I didn't enjoy, so that made me kind of turned off from Steely Dan, which is a shame for the music, not a shame for the people. Some people you don't get along with, but he didn't have that. So he didn't have that negative, bias. He goes on to say, their lyrics give them an edge beyond smooth jazz surface. Fully agree, because their lyrics are not just, I love you and whatever else smooth jazz is. I'm surprised that some of their songs were able to get radio play. True, but it was the 70s. As for Gaucho, I think the production is meant to mirror the corrupting effects of wealth and cocaine and heroin use. Damn. Well, especially since Walter Becker was going through a lot of that at the time anyway, but or recovering from it, whichever. But the fact that you can hear, Steve, that the production itself was mirroring those ideas, I love that. I absolutely love that. A song like Glamour Profession makes that pretty evident. And yeah, I mean, the song itself, absolutely. But I wonder what their later work would have sounded like had they remained a band rather than a Becker-Fagan studio project. And that I fully agree. And in fact, I think one of my favorite albums was right on the cusp of them not being a band anymore, sometime in the mid-70s. I forget when that was, and I forget the album. But I liked that album. I think it was my top ranked one, because it was that, again, that midpoint between them being a band still and exploring just, being a studio band. And I think it would have been interesting to hear what they would have done, And I comment, because I forgot, they kind of invented or co-invented yacht rock. They were like proto yacht rock, and then went well beyond it. So yacht rock was like an echo of what they were doing in a very kind of pop, facile sense. And even though there are singles by other yacht rock people I love, absolutely true, almost none of those singles compel me to listen to the whole catalog, with the exception of bands who were not yacht rock who did yacht rock, like Chicago, like Doobie Brothers. I've listened to a lot of their music because they weren't a yacht rock act. They just did yacht rock. But acts who were just yacht rock, I don't want to really, I'm not compelled to listen to them. My interview with Jas Bianchi, my business coach, Saranya Roy on LinkedIn said, Jas Bianchi truly embodies a blend of creativity and strategy. How refreshing to see diverse talents merging in today's conversations. This collaboration inspires unique paths towards success. I believe they work together. If not, doesn't matter, because she's right about that. And Jas loved it as well. And Jas will be sharing shorts from her interview soon, if not already by the airing of this episode. Recent episode, hit songs that were covers. Really, it's interesting that few people commented on this. I had Amelia Ray just sent me another podcast that was talking about 1984, and I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but there was a comment on there about how What's Love Got to Do with It was actually a cover, which I had no idea. I think it was given first to a British band, I want to say. And I need to look that up and listen to the original. It's one of my favorite things to do is to listen to the original. But people did enjoy the episode. The fact that there were songs that we know of as big hits that we associate with that era, whatever it was, 80s, 90s, 70s, even 2000s, that were actually covers. Not the first time the song was recorded and released, and not the first time, very possibly, that the song charted, although it probably charted higher as the hit. So a comment from this, and my mom sent me information on The Platters, My Prayer, which was a big hit for them in 1956. This was actually a 1939 song with music by salon violinist Georges Boulanger and lyrics. It was, I think, originally written by Boulanger with the title Avant de mourir in 1926 as an instrumental. And then in 1939, the lyrics were added by Carlos Gomez Barrera and Jimmy Kennedy. Jimmy Kennedy, I believe, was the lyrics in 39. And then Glenn Miller recorded the song that year for a #2 hit. And the Ink Spots version featuring Bill Kenny reached #3 as well that year. So this was a 1939 song that was revived in 56, and it was a hit both times, which I find interesting. Oh, man, we are getting into it. And not only are we getting into it, we're getting out of it, because these are the last comments that I'm going to mention from, let's say, fans. And then I'll get into my concluding spiel. So maybe a shorter episode than usual, which is nice for my voice because it's been a long week of recording and rehearsing. And the last comments are on my recent episode on Yoko Ono. I expect more comments, by the way, to come from this, and I hope so. And there were actually the perfect comments. No, I haven't gotten comments yet on I agree with you, but a lot of people have watched it and listened to it, and I believe the ones who aren't commenting are the ones who agree, let's say, or many of them get pretty good rating, which means the majority of people are agreeing so far, which the agreement is that I believe Yoko deserves respect. Yoko deserves to have the bullshit taken off of her back, having to do with the Beatles and John and all of that stuff, and that she should be judged on her own merits, which is what I did in that episode. And I enjoyed it, and I enjoy a lot of what she's done. And I haven't gotten a comment like that yet in agreement. What I did get was one thing I was hoping for, which was a vehement disagreement by someone from the Peanut Gallery. And the peanut refers to the size of the brain. Jesse 2D says, a gold digger who married a Beatle then gained access to his fans. She ruined so many moments, insinuating herself into John's work, interviews, and performances. A total train wreck. Now, I love the passion. I find online, I mentioned this in the Yoko episode, that the people who dislike her with a passion. And I have been the kind of person, I remember thinking when I was a kid, and I'm kind of this way now, although maybe a little less so, and that is that I was always turned off by fanatics. True fans and fanatics are not necessarily the same thing, because true fans, to me, run on a combination of emotion and intellect and spirit, let's say. I don't know. Like judgment that goes beyond just the feeling. Fanatics are existing purely on feeling, which is a wonderful thing. And I mean, if there are rec fanatics out there, I have one rec fanatic, actually, at least one that I know of, and I appreciate that person very much. That said, I would much prefer fans who understand the music more and appreciate that music throughout, rather than someone who's only going to run on emotion, because eventually those emotions run out, like gas. You run out of gas, you will run out of that emotion. It's like how they say love grows older, it grows into a different thing. It's not that rush of initial love. You can feel those things throughout a good love, but it's not going to be that, let's jump into bed every single night kind of thing that happens at the beginning of a relationship. And I think that has to be true for true fans of music, of any kind of music, which is that initial rush is what hooks you, and you need that. You need that emotion. If you don't get it beyond that emotion, it's fanaticism. And on the other side of fanaticism, and fanaticism to me is not bereft of judgment, but there's a lot of missing judgment there, in that the emotions are clouding your judgment, because that's what they do. I mean, in the political world, just think about it. We talk about politics. Most of that is clouded with emotion, because we're angry at the other side, or we're angry at what we're not getting, or we're angry at other people suffering, if that's what matters to us. And the emotions prevent us maybe from A, hearing the other side, and B, forming more logical reasoning around why we feel that way and why we believe it. Fanatics the same way. Eventually, they will probably peter out. Those are the fans who, I love them when they did X, but when they did Y, they just lost me, because your emotions petered out and you didn't allow your judgment to kind of reassess what was going on, which reassessment's always important. And I say all this because there is an equal emotional content to, I would say, non-fanatics, whatever the opposite of the fanatics are, haters, right? And when it comes to Yoko, that level of emotion is super high, which means what it means, which is they feel that strongly about it, but it means something more important, which that emotion is clouding their judgment. Now, I said this earlier to my wife about a different subject, which is that it's an interesting phenomenon that people who feel strongly about something and disagree with it will often give these convoluted reasons, some of which might be based in fact, most of which probably aren't, such as a gold digger who married a Beatle and gained access to his fan. She ruined so many moments insinuating herself into John's work, interviews, and performances, a total train wreck, and consider that to be reasoning, because the actual reasoning that could happen is completely gone from their heads. Their emotion, how they feel about this person or the music or the politics, whatever, an issue, is clouding their ability to make any sound judgments, to actually look at the facts. And this is such a prevalent thing in the Beatle world, that people who, again, say they're fans of the Beatles cannot stand Yoko. And my contention in that episode and right now is that forget the Beatles. Let's just say John. If you're a fan of John, which this person seems to be a fan of John, and John made the judgment for himself and his life that Yoko was the person for him, and you respect John, then you respect that judgment. And you respect that he was a grown-up adult making that decision, and not somebody who was being led around by the teeth by somebody who was too strong for him. Bullshit. Okay. Your beliefs about Yoko, bullshit. And I love that you put them on. I don't even know if you watched the episode. You probably didn't. You saw Yoko. You saw that I like Yoko, and you had to jump in. And I love that passion. But man, I couldn't disagree with you more, Jesse 2D. And I hope that more people shout out, because I'm not the biggest shouter by any stretch, but the more people shout out that people like Yoko deserve more respect. You know, it's sort of like the Monica Lewinsky thing. She had to spend so many years regaining respect in the world because she was vilified, but Bill Clinton could bounce right back up. Now, I don't hate either of them. I think they're, like Bill's a flawed person, whatever. Things I agree with, things I disagree with. That part of his life shouldn't have had anything to do with the politics, whatever. I'm not going to prosecute that again. But the why she would be vilified in any stretch is part of the reason why Yoko was vilified, misogyny. And then, of course, the other reason that Yoko is always vilified, racism. And then a third reason, which isn't as vitriolic, and that is that people were sad that the Beatles broke up. I'm still sad about it, and I certainly don't remember that happening. I'm sad they never got back together, and after 1980 could never get back together. I'm not going to blame Yoko. Sorry. But then I got another comment about this, and it's the final one of this episode by somebody named Hydrocorax. Probably not a real name. I'm just guessing. John broke up Fluxus. And at first I was like, oh, geez. Like another troll making this claim that John Lennon went in there into the Fluxus art movement and took Yoko and messed around with all of it, and then it broke up. Turns out This is some kind of like meme created by an artist. And I didn't know anything about this. So I love you, Hydrocorax, for putting this down because it taught me something. A guy named David Horvitz, the artist David Horvitz, the phrase is most famously associated with him. Other people have used it, but he created a series of artworks and merchandise featuring the phrase. And Horvitz is known for his witty and conceptual work, and this phrase is a classic example of that. So it was meant to be this kind of meta joke. Like, oh, you think Yoko broke up the Beatles? Well, John broke up Fluxus, that kind of a thing. And I love everything about that to the point where I may need to find that t-shirt. So thank you. And thank you, all of you, for watching and listening. It's not the end of the episode, but it is an episode about you. So I want to thank you as much as I can. The end of the episode, coming soon, starts with my concluding thought. The envelope is broken. Why did I say that? When I started this podcast, first of all, the episodes were much shorter because all I was saying was, here's some music I own. I like it. Here's why I like it. You may have a different opinion, but that's all I'm going to say about it. And then, I might have had enthusiasm, but that's about it. I might have said one thing, I dislike this, whatever, a little bit of insight. I did have some insight even at the beginning. But as the Music Is Not a Genre MxG took shape, I started to incorporate more of my own personality, my own subjectivity, and more educated opinions and such like. So it fleshed it out. The episodes got a little longer. I even started talking about world issues. It's become a hallmark of this episode that when I say music is not a genre, I mean no music should be confined to one genre. And genres are restrictive, but that the quote-unquote genre of music as an art, as a world of art, all of music should not be separated from the rest of the world, that it is connected, not just to music fans, but to other parts of the world. And that's why I bring in politics and social issues and, sometimes science and other things like that. It's become a hallmark, one of the hallmarks of this podcast, that I do that. And it always connects to the week's topic. But, for example, easy one, gender and genre, same root word. If music is not a genre, people are not a gender. Can classifications help? In both cases, yes. Should people be confined to those classifications or music? No. Okay. So, for a while, I kept to the subjects and stuff I knew about, partly because it started with me taking things from my collection, but then branching out into, I love this, I want to talk about this, I love that, I want to talk about that. I had enthusiasm about it. Of course, talk about it. Great place to start. But starting a tiny bit last season, pushing the envelope with like King's X, I never knew about them. And then this season with things I never would have thought were a topic, whether you're talking about country music, folk, protest music, Culture Club, Steely Dan, Yoko. I was challenged either by myself or by you, one of the fans, to take on those topics. And so it was a conscious and unconscious decision this season to destroy the envelope in two ways. That one, which is picking topics I have little or no affinity for. I might respect and admire, but would never have explored. Tears for Fears, Yoko Ono, etc., but treating all of the topics with the same diligence, respect, and enthusiasm as any topic about something that I love, which is to make a point that people can do this too. It's easy for me to put my whole self into an episode on U2 or Prince or the Beatles or The Cure or whatever, but to do that for topics I don't want to talk about, envelope broken. And the second way the envelope has been broken is that I've been getting more direct and heated about social and political issues. You heard it in this episode a few times. You've heard it in episodes this entire season where if the topic of the music topic itself somehow is connected to something in the world, I'm not just going to jump in and make the connection. I'm going to get direct about it. I'm going to get heated about it. Yes, I've been bringing social issues into the show since probably season 3, certainly by season 4, but I've shattered that envelope this year by stating my beliefs in no uncertain terms, and at times most of the time backing up those beliefs with details and logical explanations of why my beliefs are based in fact and not just in emotion. Although I will convey the emotion as I say those beliefs. And of course, these two ways of breaking the envelope, busting the envelope, wide open, talking about things that are not subjects that are your favorites or that you're into, and getting more direct and open about subjects. They don't just challenge me, they challenge you too. They ask you to get interested in topics you might not otherwise explore, just as I have. They ask you to listen to my opinion on tons of topics, music and otherwise, and to absorb it, listen, and hopefully weigh in yourself, whether or not you agree. It's what this whole episode's about. You weighed in, and I appreciate that. I also challenge you, though, and I challenge you to challenge yourself with music and the rest of the world by being open to experiencing and exploring things you usually say no to, or think you have no interest in, or don't agree with. You'll be surprised. Every single time I've done that, whether it's a political, social topic, or music, or anything else, I have found not just interesting things like, oh, I didn't know that. That's actually is really interesting. Even if I still don't like or agree with it, I've also found things that I do agree with within in there, which I'll comment on in a second. This is the way the world's going to improve. This is it. We're not talking to each other. The world's not going to get any better for any of us. Any of us. And I'm talking to you progressives out there who think not talking, disdaining and demonizing the opposition is the way to go. No, you're perpetuating the problem just the way anyone else is. And I'm one of those. And I have been known in the past to perpetuate that problem. Not anymore. No. This is how we're going to find ways to communicate across the aisle. As they say, whether the aisle is you hate you too and I love you too, or you love Trump and I don't, whatever it is, we're not going to be able to communicate across the aisle unless we challenge ourselves to do it. There are usually more hidden commonalities and points of agreement than we give each other credit for on both sides, except for Kanye. Fuck him. I hope you take all this in the spirit it's given. It's meant to be both entertaining and educating, and to not just give you something to kind of listen to and chill with, but also, to kind of open your mind a little bit about stuff. And I further hope that you continue to challenge me with your opinions and your knowledge and your suggestions of what I should do next and your disagreements and all of that stuff. I love it. I love it more than I can possibly say. Which brings me closer to the end of this episode, and that is the featured song, Speaking of Challenges. For the last couple of seasons, in every full episode, including this one, I have a mid-roll. And that mid-roll is a challenge to you to visit nickdimatteo.com to explore what I do besides this, and patreon.com/musicisnotagenre to support this show, because I need way more support than I'm getting to continue this. And I still challenge you to do that, but that's not why I bring this up. The reason I bring this up because the featured song is the instrumental that plays behind me during the mid-roll. That's the featured song this week. It's a composition called Outerloper from an album I did under my production team name, The Drop, called Long Held Grudges. It's on that album. It's streaming everywhere. I'll put the link, of course. It's a quirky, loping, funky instrumental. You hear it every main episode, so you hear a little bit, but now you get to hear the full thing, and you get to hear it at full volume. I made it by taking a piece of music that I created, that I wrote and recorded for an off-Broadway play at the Cherry Lane Theater many years ago, and I repurposed that by kind of doing my own quote-unquote remix. I added a beat to it. I added more weird, funky sounds. I added a melody to it. I changed the structure of it. I made it longer and stuff like that. It's the kind of repurposing and remix I like, which is to do something different with the source material. And that's what Outerloper is. It's also just silly fun. And stay tuned in just a minute. You'll hear it right after I ask you the concluding questions, or click the link and listen to it right now. Which questions, as always, there's only one question this time. What should I do next? Tell me. Tell me what my topics should be. And if it's something that I think has legs, even if I don't like it, I take the challenge. And those are the questions I have for you. That one single question. As always, I want to know what you think. Like this entire episode, because my objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. Thank you for all of this. Boy, is it fun reading your comments and connecting with you and doing this in general. And I will talk to you next week.